We've mentioned it before. It's day 37, in case you weren't keeping up, of the government shutdown. Joining us now, House Speaker Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, it's good to have you on this morning.
Good morning. Not a great day in America because of the shutdown, but I'm always happy to be with you.
And happy to be with you as well. We had Senator Britt on a little bit earlier talking about some of the efforts from that chamber. I know you're willing to talk and try to get this thing ended, but it's really up to the Senate. What do you think of these ideas of a couple of the appropriations bills that have already passed? You could put it on the clean CR. That was her idea, but I don't think there was an Obamacare subsidy extension being talked about. Would that induce any Democrats to cross over that finally and vote for the CR, those other appropriations?
Well, my dear friend Senator Britt and others are doing a great job over there. The Republicans are working hard with a handful of moderate centrist Democrats who are left, who understand the pain that's being inflicted on the American people, and they want a way out of this. The Democrats have painted themselves into a corner, Joe, as we've discussed before, because this really was, as some people say, the Seinfeld shutdown. It's a shutdown about nothing. There was no fight. There was no skirmish between the parties. When we passed back on September 19th, the clean continuing resolution, it was nonpartisan. You know, it's 24 pages in length, bare bones, just to keep the lights on. And this is an important point. The whole reason for that is because the Republicans and the Democrats, who are appropriators, got together and said, we're running out of time to do the normal process, the regular order of funding the government. We need about 7 more weeks. So let's just extend it to November 21, and we'll all get our work done. That was the agreement they made, bipartisan and bicameral. But then Chuck Schumer decided to throw a big wrench in the middle of the machine because he wanted to show a fight against President Trump because he needs political cover against the rising radicals in his party. I mean, that's pure and simple what this is about. So it never really was about any particular issue. It was about the Democrats trying to show a fight. And now they've gotten themselves into the longest shutdown in U.S. history, and it's serious business for serious people.
Do you think, Mr. Speaker, and let's take some Democrats at face value with what they say. They say that they're really concerned about the expiration of the Obamacare pandemic subsidies. And that if they knew for sure that Republicans would negotiate in good faith after they reopen the government, that if they had assurances even from President Trump, they would do it. That's only about $40 billion. Why do we keep hearing $1.5 trillion? And why would you use the leverage, which Democrats have, because you need a supermajority? Why would you use it to put all that other stuff in there if all you really wanted was a way to get a year's worth of these subsidies? That's only $40 billion. Would you have agreed? Would Republicans have agreed to that, or not? Not even that would have been okay with Republicans.
Well, what you're highlighting there is the entire point of this. When we say it's a shutdown about nothing, if you polled 100 Democrats between the House and Senate, you get 100 different answers about what this is about. That's the thing. It never was about one particular policy or argument or discussion. We all knew that the COVID-era Obamacare subsidy was going to lapse at the end of December. That is the expiration date that the Democrats themselves put on it when they created that big subsidy, okay? We knew that we were going to have to debate and arm wrestle about that through October, November, December. That was always on the calendar. Everybody in the building knew that in both parties. They tried to glob onto that and make that the issue of the day because they think that sells with voters, okay? Yes, the appropriations process is going forward. Yes, we're going to have to talk about health care and sort all that out. But when we say the $1.5 trillion, that is the actual counter offer that they put on paper and filed in the Senate. It is still sitting over there as their counter proposal. $1.5 trillion in new spending on a 7-week stopgap funding measure. I mean, it's just madness. And included in that, yes, go read the bill. They want almost $200 billion to be returned to health care benefits for illegal aliens. They want to send all these billions of dollars back over to foreign countries for social spending in other countries. They wanted to restore $500 million to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. All these things. And in that proposal, amazingly, shockingly to us, they put it on paper. They want to repeal the $50 billion rural hospital fund that Republicans worked so hard to get signed into law July 4th. So it's just a mishmash of priorities and things that different Democrats are claiming. That illustrates the very point This was never about one particular issue. They just wanted to show a fight. They wanted to look tough to the Marxist rise in their party. And remember this, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are both New Yorkers, right? We all just saw what happened in New York City. Mamdani is all the rage now, and the young communists are uprising, and that scares the old guard Democrats in Congress. And so they were afraid they'd get a challenge from a Mamdani disciple in their next election cycle. And
Mr. Speaker,
that is what all this is about.
You've explained it on this show. I've seen you everywhere, and Senator Thune, everybody else. To this day, though, a lot of the stuff that I get pushed back on Johnson, they're trying to cut Medicaid. Most people in the country do not know it's about a clean resolution. They think that in this bill that Democrats will not vote for, they think that Republicans are cutting Medicaid and taking away Obamacare from people. So that somehow that has not reached most people at this point. And you saw the results of the election the other night. Now, they were blue states, no doubt. But in New Jersey, it was a much bigger margin than people thought that Ciattarelli lost by. Virginia, even the attorney general, even that guy was able to get it. So something about the shutdown, it's not getting out from Republicans, because the narrative from the left is that you're meanies, they're going to take health care away.
Well, they're suggesting that's going to happen later, not necessarily as part of this, but they're trying to use the leverage.
This is a clean CR.
No,
it's a clean CR.
There's a lot of false narratives. It is a clean CR. It is exactly what they had already voted for. And literally, Chuck Schumer led the 10 Democrats in the Senate to vote for this same product back in March. But that's when he took all the abuse from the radical left. And he made a decision back then, I don't care what, I'm never going to do the right thing again. I'm not going to keep the government open. I'll go down on that hill, because he knows his career's over if he doesn't. I mean, really, that's what this is about. The clean CR, guys, is Biden-era policies and spending. It's not Republican priorities. We don't even like this stuff. But we were trying to operate in good faith to keep the lights on. There's so many false narratives about this. Yes, I'm not surprised that people are misled, because the entire mainstream media is out every day parroting the talking points of Chuck Schumer. I have to go do a press conference every morning just to try to put the truth out there, the simple truth that is not changing. It sounds repetitive to us.
Not from 6 to 9 here.
Saturate.
Not from 6 to 9 here, Mr. Speaker. We're not parroting this.
I know.
Mr. Speaker,
I
wanted to ask you.
That's why I appreciate your show.
Well, come on. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something different, which is just a comment on what we heard yesterday in the Supreme Court, because a number of the justices, including conservative ones, Justice Gorsuch and others, raising questions to the Trump administration about the tariffs, and specifically asked at one point whether there were any guardrails that would prevent Congress from, quote, just abdicating all responsibility to regulate foreign commerce, for that matter, declare war to the president, effectively asking whether the president has too much power and whether Congress is effectively abdicating its power in this context.
Yes. Look, I followed it as much as I could in a busy day yesterday. That was what I used to do. I was a constitutional law litigator. I had lots of those oral arguments. I would not read too much into the justices' questions. I mean, that's kind of part of the process. It's to be expected. Vigorous judicial review is what you expect at the Supreme Court. And so they ask probing questions, and it's almost never indicative of how they'll come out in the end. I'm cheering for the president that the executive will win on this. Now, I say that as a jealous guardian of the legislative branch of government, Article 1. There's a reason we're listed first in the Constitution. This is supposed to be the place of greatest importance. We're the ones that are supposed to make the law and the policy. But we do give the executive traditionally a lot of leeway, a lot of discretion over international trade. And we had a serious problem in this country for decades. As you all know, and you've discussed many times, we had a big trade disparity. The president stepped in. I think he's used that authority appropriately. He's obviously created a lot of leverage for our trade strategy internationally, and it's yielded great results. And so I'm watching that carefully, because I'm the guardian of the Article 1 branch of government. But I think he's well within the lines, and I hope that a majority of the justices agree, because if they reverse all this, it would really be chaos in the markets and in the economy. It'd be a real problem for the country.
And that's a point that Justice Amy Coney Barrett actually asked about yesterday during the case, about what kind of, quote, mess this could create. But let me ask you a question that she also asked of the Trump administration. She said this is about effectively the law they're using to do this currently, that was put in place in 1977 by Congress. You're asking us to read, quote, regulate importation, which is the phrase in that law, as a blank check. If that's what Congress meant, why didn't it say so? What do you think?
Well, I think Amy's a brilliant jurist, and I've known her since high school back in Louisiana, and I'm not surprised she asked good questions. I think the response there was appropriate. I didn't hear all the oral argument, but I know what the analysis and the rationale of the White House is, and they believe they're using the appropriate authority under the law. I do as well. And I would tell you, I mean, Andrew, if I thought that the executive was overstepping its bounds, I would have spoken up. Now, I do it in my way. I would do it behind the scenes with the president. We'd work that out privately, not in a public dispute. But I really do think they're within the bounds, and I'd love to talk to my old friend Amy about that and try to sell her on my view. I wish I could have argued that case. I would have enjoyed that one.
Mr. Speaker, this has got me thinking all kinds of different things, and a lot of the scenarios are quite horrific. And I'm talking about the filibuster, and the senators are pushing back on what the president wants to do there. But then I think about it, and he is right about one thing. If the Democrats have a majority without Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they will get rid of the filibuster, and that would open up the floodgates for God knows what. Gun control with 51 votes for gun control, for climate change, for whatever. So it seems like it has nothing to do with tariffs right now. But it seems like an absolutely horrific outcome if it were to happen. Is it going to survive? It seems like its days are numbered. It's been around since 1917. Do you think it should survive? Or because the president's pushing for Republicans to end it?
Well, I'm delighted that of all the things I have to say my prayers about in the morning, it ain't the filibuster, because that's a Senate thing, not a House thing. But I'll tell you what our Senate Republican colleagues say. Some of the most conservative, some of the most thoughtful people is that they jealously guard that as a speed bump, right? Because you're right. If the Democrats were ever able to govern with unified government, White House, Senate, and House, without the filibuster, you would get the Supreme Court would be packed with 13 or 15 justices. They'd make, Puerto Rico, D.C. states. You're right. Second Amendment would be infringed immediately. You'd have all sorts of chaos. They'd nationalize the elections, abortion on demand, just go down the list. So the filibuster has been a very important safeguard, a bulwark against the Democrats' worst impulses. The big question is, and you're right, the president's convinced the Democrats would do it next time if they ever had the opportunity. I'm a little more skeptical about that. I mean, this is my view. It doesn't matter. I don't get a vote on this. But when Manchin and Sinema held them back last time, I'm told, and I believe it's true, that there was a group of moderate Democrats who voted yes and prayed no. In other words, they let Sinema and Manchin take the arrows and be the sacrificial lambs because they wanted to look tough to the base. But they certainly prayed that it would not be the case because they're afraid what we would do without any speed bumps, So, I mean, it's been an important part of the institution. That's what the Senate, the Republicans and the Democrat senators have argued in the past. And the founders, when they set up the Constitution, remember, they wanted the Senate to be the cooling saucer. That's how it was described, right? The House would be hot and emotional and everything would fly over there, and then it would rest and they would have deliberate debate, very thoughtful conversation, more time would go by, and that would prevent our worst impulses. I'll just say this last thought. If the filibuster's gone, and maybe its time has come, they have to decide that, but if it's gone, you're going to have massive whiplash after every election, every presidential election. Anytime a new team comes in, it would be a lot of instability, and I don't think that's great for the markets or the economy or anything else.
Mr. Speaker, before we let you go, there's a story we've been talking about all morning. Wanted to get your thoughts on it. NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang was quoted in the Financial Times this morning saying that China will win the AI race. He was effectively making the argument that some of NVIDIA's most advanced chips effectively should be sold in China. Otherwise, they're going to run away with it, given some of the things they're already doing. He's since softened some of those comments online. But how do you think about whether NVIDIA and some of the American companies making the most advanced chips should be exporting those chips to China?
Well, we think about this race with China every day, constantly. They're trying to become a peer-to-peer adversary to us, and they have been on that journey for a while now. We're still the world's great superpower for a lot of reasons, but we cannot lose the AI race, and it's very serious. It has massive implications, most importantly for national security. And so I hope he's wrong in that analysis. I know he's got a business angle, and I respect his work and what he's doing, and I want them to be successful, obviously. But I think China is an adversary and not an ally. And I think they're playing a long game, and we have to take that very seriously. And we have to keep our edge into AI. The last time I checked with my tech gurus and the Silicon Valley leaders out there, they think we're still months ahead, maybe many months ahead of China on the advancement, but that can change, right? So we've got to do what is necessary to keep our edge, because a lot is riding on that.
Speaker Johnson, wow, exactly 8:25. I'm really, we got to hit the hard break like you can't believe for you, and we're going to do it. We're going to make it before then. Thank you so much. Great to have you on this morning.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you as always.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker.